On this Sunday night, a harrowing reminder of the changing climate. Twin typhoons slam into Southeast Asia, leaving death and destruction in their wake. As world leaders gather for the UN Climate Summit, will their commitments be enough?
We have greatly and gravely concerned about the slow progress.
U.S. airport operations in a tailspin. Why thousands more flights could be grounded as America's longest government shutdown drags on. Plus, finding fungi, an Alberta scientist's groundbreaking discovery unseen to the naked eye. And remembering Canadian veteran Gordy Quan.
What they fought for, you still have to fight for today.
His legacy of fighting for his country and for his citizenship.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in the Philippines, battered by another deadly storm. At least 2 people were killed when Super Typhoon Fung-Wong slammed into the country's northeastern coast today. Over 1 million people have been forced to flee their homes. Earlier this week, another typhoon hit the country, killing more than 200 people. Nathaniel Dove looks at the damage and what's driving the surge of powerful storms worldwide.
Another deadly storm striking the Philippines, forcing 1 million people to evacuate. We're scared, this man says, adding he left early because his grandchildren are with him. Super Typhoon Fung-Wong coming ashore days after another typhoon killed more than 200 people in the Philippines and caused severe damage in Vietnam, and barely a week after Hurricane Melissa devastated Jamaica.
Initial estimates show that the damage caused is approximately the equivalent of 30% of Jamaica's GDP.
Stronger storms, usually fueled in part by warmer waters, a stark reminder of the challenges the world faces.
These affected countries face long-term setbacks.
The 30th UN Climate Conference begins Monday. Part of the focus, to reach agreement on paying for climate change mitigation. One of the world's largest carbon emitters, the U.S., won't take part. Canada will, with the Environment Minister attending the first week.
What is really important is that Canada stand up for multilateralism and for acting together on climate.
Former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna says participants need concrete commitments to reach their climate goals for the summit to be a success. But Prime Minister Mark Carney scrapped the consumer carbon price, and the new budget suggests Canada could drop a planned oil and gas emissions cap.
We're going to need to see that polluters pay. And the system now does not mean that polluters are paying. In fact, oil and gas companies have done, the least to tackle climate change.
It's also the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, when countries agreed to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels.
10 years on from Paris, we have greatly and gravely concerned about the slow progress in delivering significant emissions reductions to ensure our survival.
Before the summit began, some countries called out that they produce very few emissions, but face the greatest risks. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Investments in clean and renewable energy will be part of those discussions at the UN Climate Summit. And despite Carney's friendlier tone with the oil and gas sector, this year's federal budget appears to offer a boost to an ambitious proposal for generating offshore wind power off the coast of Nova Scotia. Heidi Petracek has the details and what it will take to make it a reality.
The East Coast is a windy place, something Nova Scotia's premier is counting on.
Our offshore wind zones could generate up to 66 gigawatts.
Wind West is Tim Houston's massive plan to turn 4 sites into offshore wind farms and export the excess power Nova Scotia wouldn't use to Quebec and Ontario, maybe even the U.S.
If we really want to build, a strong, robust offshore wind industry that's worth building, we're going to need power lines.
That will take billions of dollars. Canada's federal budget highlighted the potential of the project among nation-building projects and strategies, calling it, quote, truly transformative. Ottawa also promised to boost investment in clean energy through tax credits for industry, something Houston wanted.
I know that there are a number of entities that are interested, But in order to put a bid forward, what they really need is certainty.
Certainty hasn't been found south of the border, where U.S. President Donald Trump has thrown cold water on the industry, using executive orders and court actions to try to stop offshore developments. Despite that, a recent report suggests there is greater global interest, with 88 countries showing offshore wind potential and wind capacity forecast to triple by 2030.
And so Wind West would really help to build the infrastructure and also help with just the uncertainty around, permitting, regulatory process.
It's going to take time before there are any turbines spinning off the coast of Nova Scotia. The Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Energy Regulator has put out a call for interested parties to weigh in on what they think of the plan, including Indigenous groups, the fishing industry, and the public. And that alone takes 90 days.
But certainly there is a huge opportunity not only to green the grid in Nova Scotia, but hopefully to green, other grids.
Time is of the essence, with the impacts of climate change already being felt. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Parts of Quebec and Ontario are seeing the first snowfall of the season. Environment Canada has issued weather warnings with forecasts predicting a heavy dusting for several areas in southern Ontario. Toronto and Ottawa are expecting between 10 to 30 centimeters of snow. Similar amounts could be seen in southern and central Quebec, with Montreal expecting nearly 10 centimeters. Thousands of Quebec doctors, medical residents and students gathered at the Bell Centre in Montreal today, calling for the suspension of legislation that sets performance targets and changes how physicians are paid. The protest follows weeks of tension between the provincial government and medical federations. Elizabeth Zogalis reports from Montreal.
A DJ, a concert, and 12,000 people at the Bell Centre would normally indicate some kind of celebration. But on Sunday afternoon, 4 different medical federations, thousands of doctors, and hundreds of medical students gathered to send a message to the Quebec government that Bill 2 must be paused. Forced through the National Assembly last month without any consultation, Bill 2 links a portion of physicians' pay to performance targets and imposes hefty fines on those who use pressure tactics to oppose the reforms.
And with all the reforms that I've lived through, it's absolutely the worst reform of all the other reforms.
Doctors argue the legislation silences them and could push physicians to leave Quebec and even completely destroy the public healthcare system.
The healthcare system is broken, and every time we've gone to Dubé and said, we're happy to fix it, we're happy to try to help, we want to work with you, he's kiboshed it.
During the 2-hour conference, several medical professionals and union heads spoke about the lack of respect the government is showing them, working conditions on the ground, the lack of resources in the public healthcare system, and most of all, the devotion to their patients.
It takes away our rights, but it also takes away, most importantly, the ability to care properly for patients the way we were trained to.
Several medical students say the bill could discourage them from staying in Quebec.
Personally, the jury is still out, but I know a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, and a lot of my mentors not only thinking about it, but are taking concrete steps to leave. Absolutely.
The bill has caused several medical federations to take legal action while causing unrest within the CAQ government. A longtime minister stepped down just over a week ago after voicing his concerns over the bill. On Tuesday, Health Minister Christian Dubé announced that 2 parts of the bill would be suspended in hopes of convincing doctors back to the bargaining table. Elizabeth Zogalis, Global News, Montreal.
Nova Scotia's Chief Justices issued a statement today supporting individual judges prohibiting courtroom staff from wearing Remembrance Day poppies on the basis they're political statements. The heads of Nova Scotia's Supreme and Provincial Courts say judges have an obligation to ensure the courtroom is unbiased and impartial, and banning a symbol such as a poppy is not intended to undermine veterans, but to ensure everyone knows court is a neutral space. Staff who wish to wear a poppy in court must seek approval from the presiding judge first. Nova Scotia's Premier Tim Houston is against the move. A deal has reportedly been reached in the U.S. Senate with at least 8 Democrats ready to support a funding measure as soon as tonight. It could pave the way to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. But major flight disruptions are dragging on as air traffic controllers and security staff were being forced to work without pay. Experts warn the shutdown could keep rippling through supply chains and the holiday travel season.
You're going to have air travel slow to a trickle.
The U.S. Transportation Secretary warning Sunday on Fox News of massive flight disruptions as American Thanksgiving approaches.
It really stinks that the government is affecting travel like this. Everyone deserves to, be able to go on their flights, go on their way, visit their families. The holidays are coming up, and if this continues, this is going to end up being a big problem.
The Federal Aviation Administration ordered a 4% reduction in flights last Friday. That's set to jump to 10% by the end of the week if the shutdown continues. Duffy says the decision was made to relieve pressure off the thousands of air traffic controllers and security screeners who've had to work without pay.
We have done all we can to make sure we minimize disruption, that we keep the airspace safe.
According to flight tracking site FlightAware, more than 1,900 flights have been canceled Sunday across the country's 40 busiest airports. And it's putting extra strain on supply chain demands as shipping companies FedEx and UPS have also had to ground dozens of MD-11 cargo planes following last week's deadly crash in Louisville, Kentucky.
So the impact on the supply chain will probably be more on those items that are high value and the need to have air transportation carried out. The odds are if we start cranking up the cancellation rate, we'll start getting shortages potentially of pharmaceuticals and perishable material.
Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
In Florida, 4 people were killed when a speeding car fleeing police slammed into a busy bar. And a warning, the video is disturbing. An air patrol unit spotted the car driving recklessly on a freeway in Tampa. Florida Highway Patrol unsuccessfully attempted a pit maneuver, a controversial technique used to cause a vehicle to spin out. Police say officers then stopped their pursuit. The driver continued speeding and lost control, crashing into several people outside of a bar. Suspect has been arrested. 2 Major League Baseball pitchers have been charged in an alleged sports betting scheme. Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz both pitch for the Cleveland Guardians and were put on paid leave in July. It's alleged they took bribes to give sports bettors advance notice of the types of pitches they'd throw and intentionally toss balls instead of strikes to ensure successful bets. It's alleged their co-conspirators won nearly $500,000 in fraudulent bets. Israel received the remains of a soldier killed in Gaza. Coming up, after more than 11 years, the exchange facilitated by the Red Cross. Israel confirmed today it has received the remains of an Israeli soldier killed in Gaza nearly 11 years ago. In an exchange facilitated by the Red Cross, Hamas handed over the remains of Hadar Goldin on Saturday after the 23-year-old's body was discovered in a tunnel in southern Gaza. The soldier was killed by Palestinian militants in an ambush in Rafah in 2014, just hours after a ceasefire went into effect in that year's war between Israel and Hamas. Rescuers off the coast of Malaysia have recovered the bodies of 7 migrants from Myanmar after their boat capsized. 13 survivors have been rescued so far, but hundreds are still missing. Authorities say the vessel was part of a larger group of about 300 people, which departed Myanmar 3 days ago. 2 boats remain missing. The UN is urging regional governments to step up search efforts and take action to prevent these tragedies. Nearly 600 Rohingya refugees have been reported missing or dead after similar journeys this year. In Bangladesh, police used water cannon, tear gas, and sound grenades to disperse hundreds of primary school teachers demonstrating for higher pay. Police say some protesters tried to push through barricades and hurled bricks at officers. Many primary school teachers in Bangladesh are not covered by the government payroll system. An Edmonton scientist on the trail of something most people never notice. Ahead, how a simple walk in the woods turned into a discovery years in the making. Football fans in Regina bundled up to watch a classically Canadian game last night. With the wind chill at -15, the Saskatchewan Roughriders rallied to beat the BC Lions and earn a spot in the Grey Cup. They'll play Montreal in next Sunday's final. The Grey Cup arrived in the host city of Winnipeg today, where temperatures are expected to be milder for the big game. Typically, the first significant frost or colder winter weather signals the end of the mushroom foraging season across Canada. The science behind fungi and how to find and properly ID each genus has been growing right across North America in recent years. And now, 13 new species have been unearthed in Alberta. As Sarah Ryan explains, if you want to see them, you'll need a very sharp eye.
So when I'm looking at the forest, I'm looking for the color and the state of the branches. I want something that has bark on it, but it looks like it's recently died.
Diane Hoagland is on a treasure hunt.
We're out here to show you, I would say, some very overlooked aspects of biodiversity in Edmonton's River Valley.
She's searching for something so tiny, it's tough to see with the naked eye. Calicoids.
So it's kind of the equivalent of a tiny mushroom.
Perhaps because of their size, they've been hiding, unknown to science.
We didn't know what it was. It had this tiny little stalk, 0.2 of a millimeter tall.
As a lichenologist with the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute, Hoagland and her team found something unusual about a decade ago.
And it all started when a twig came across my desk.
So they started testing it.
So we squashed it, we did scanning electron microscopy, we did DNA work, we sent it to experts in Maine, sent it to experts in Ottawa.
After years of research, it turns out it's new. In fact, the team found 13 new species across the province. In Edmonton, the two previously unknown calicoids live on birch trees and roses.
When you get forests that have a lot of calicoid lichens and fungi, that typically means it's a pretty special place, and it's been around for a while, and it's probably worth conserving.
Globally, only 2 or 3 new lichens or fungi are found annually. After discovering them, Hoagland also got to name them, finally publishing their work in the Bio1 journal this fall.
So now that we've described it, anybody in the world can read our description and they can start to look for these new species in their backyards. And hopefully they'll find them.
But there's not a lot else known about these calicoids yet. Are they new or just newly discovered? Where in the world can they be found? How long do they live? How do they get their energy?
That's the joy of science, really, is that there's so much more to learn about these things. Putting a name on them is just really the first step.
Sarah Ryan, Global News.
From exclusion to enlistment. Next, remembering the man recognized as Canada's last Chinese Second World War veteran. Royals, including King Charles, paid solemn tributes at London's Cenotaph War Memorial today, honoring those who served in times of conflict, all part of ceremonies for Remembrance Sunday in the UK ahead of Armistice Day, which the country marks on November 11th. Some 10,000 British veterans attended today's service, including 20 surviving veterans of the Second World War. Here in Canada, this week will mark the first Remembrance Day without Gordon or Gordy Quan, long recognized as Canada's last living Chinese veteran of the Second World War. Quan passed away last month, just a few months shy of his 100th birthday. Now his son is reflecting on his service as a new exhibit at Vancouver's Chinese-Canadian Museum honors veterans like him, whose stories shed a light on their fight for both country and citizenship.
It's a hat that he decided he wanted to wear. And
he wore it proudly, a hat with a few service pins. Gordon, or Gordy Quan's son, is looking back on his mementos and reflecting on the memories the Second World War veteran kept to himself.
My dad never talked about the war.
After the war, Quan settled into civilian life. His son says he trained as a mechanic. He bought a small farm and devoted his later years to volunteering in his community, quietly building a life in the country he helped defend.
This is his Royal Canadian Legion that he belonged to.
He enlisted in 1944 at age 18 among about 600 Chinese Canadians. Many served in the British-led Force 136, a secretive unit that operated behind enemy lines in Burma.
The Burman Star is probably this one here.
At the time, Chinese Canadians didn't have citizenship and couldn't vote, blocked by the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1923.
People like my dad felt that if they took the chance, the risk to go to war, when they came back, if they came back, they could ask for citizenship, the right to vote.
After the war, many veterans, including Quan, joined national efforts demanding equal rights, leading to the repeal of the Exclusion Act in 1947 and the extension of voting rights to Chinese Canadians.
At that time, let's go fight for the right to be Canadian.
Quan passed away in October, months before what would have been his 100th birthday.
This is the list of all Chinese Canadian soldiers that served in the war. Gordy Quan is listed right here.
This year, his name and photo are part of a new exhibit at the Chinese Canadian Museum in Vancouver.
We have an exhibition called A Soldier for All Seasons, and what that does is preserve the history and stories of Chinese Canadian veterans.
It highlights Force 136.
The soldiers were meant to find their own way home back to Canada after the war was over. Bill Chan, who became the first and only Chinese Canadian society to receive the British Empire Medal.
For Richard Quan, this first Remembrance Day without his father is a chance to continue his legacy.
I think he would say that what they fought for, you still have to fight for today.
Gordy Quan's story now stands as part of a wider history shaping how and who Canadians remember. And Donna Friesen will anchor our live coverage of the Remembrance Day ceremony in Ottawa on Tuesday morning, starting at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, right here on Global. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Huendin, Alberta, Victoria Beach, Manitoba, and Portugal Cove, St. Philip's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching and have a great night.